There have been many powerful warriors throughout the millennia. But ages of mortal combat have begun to tear the fabric of the realms. The critical point has finally been reached. It was foreseen that combatants would one day grow too powerful and too numerous. If left unchecked, their intensifying combat would weaken and shatter the realms and bring about the apocalypse.
In a world where the realms saw constant battle and an alarming rate of combatants combined, the bloodshed grew far too out of hand for the Elder Gods to allow. To prevent complete annihilation, one final tournament would spawn at the Pyramid of Argus, determining once and for all who the supreme champion of Mortal Kombat would truly be. Put your rivalries, vendettas, and alliances aside, because this was the battle for survival. When Mortal Kombat made its transition into the 3D world thanks to the new age of gaming technology at the time, the PlayStation 2 being the most popular version, this game would be the third installment to the 3D series, combining many mechanics from previous titles and adding some of its own. This was quite possibly the wackiest Mortal Kombat game we've seen to date, and can be utterly broken down to its core. This is the latest addition to the MK meta, and this is Mortal Kombat Armageddon. Released in October of 2006, it wouldn't be an MK meta if I didn't cover the modes first. You had your standard tower or arcade mode, where you fight through a set amount of enemies to achieve your character's ending. Conquest mode was Armageddon's story, a full 3D beat-em-up style adventure where we play as Taven, one of two brothers, of which the other is Dagon. Two new characters to the franchise and would only be playable in this game alone. Both are the sons of Argus, the Elder God, and we follow Taven through his journey to try and resolve the Armageddon conflict. We of course meet many MK characters along the way, and if you haven't played this game yet, I highly suggest diving into an underrated piece of old school MK lore. Create a Fighter lets you make your own Mortal Kombat characters, using a pretty high variety of options. It's only the PS2 era, so understandably it's not the most in-depth creator in the world, but it really did make the game more fun on a casual level when we were younger. The funny thing looking back is that competitively, you just couldn't allow custom characters to be legal, because you could very much go out of your way to make the most busted character imaginable, because not only was it custom appearance, it was every single attack you wanted as well. The Crypt actually began in the 3D games and was a lot more direct as a source of unlocking extra content. Armageddon featured mostly concept art and alternate costumes, but could be used to fast-track unlock the hidden characters and stages as well. On top of this, we could see team photos, promotional material, behind the scenes, and video footage that never saw the light of day. Every 3D game had some kind of weird extra mode, and Armageddon's was Motor Combat. You ever wanted to play Mario Kart but with Mortal Kombat characters? Well, Motor Combat was your answer. Surprisingly fun and even had its own roster. Characters had their own special attack and the ability to smack other racers. AI would rubber band to you all the time, so it was crazy hard to win, but for a laugh, this game mode was 10 out of 10. Finally, create a fatality. Characters in Armageddon didn't have their own fatalities like in every other game. This could very well have been due to the immense roster size, or deadlines to meet, etc, but it meant that during Finish Him, you would have the option to combine different inputs and stack them all on top of each other. Down down, forward forward, down back, all of which followed up by a button press. Square would be something fast and low impact. Triangle would often be dismemberment, and circle would be the actual finisher itself. The more that you stacked, the faster the counter would go down, and the more inputs that you achieved, the greater the coin reward at the end. You had to finish it with a circle ender though, otherwise it would fail. Once you learned all the inputs, it was hilarious to put them together and just BM really. You would have extra options if your character had the right weapon, but that was very much character specific. Before I get into the meat and potatoes of the video, I want to talk about the game's roster, because this was Armageddon's biggest selling point to MK fans around the world. If you had a favourite MK character at all, there was a bloody good chance they'd be playable in Armageddon. The entire point of the game was to gather every fighter among the realms for one final battle. Although no doubt a mammoth task for the design team, they managed to pull it off, and this game featured 62 playable characters in total. The Wii version of Armageddon had 63 because Female Chameleon was a console exclusive edition. For those wondering, she had the combined moves of the female ninjas and the Eagle Claw fighting style. I still remember being a kid and seeing Midway share this promotional image. I was just googling Mortal Kombat one day, as you do as a ridiculously nerdy MK fan back in those days, and this image just popped up. It clearly existed to show off the roster before launch, but just look at it. Imagine being a massive MK fan with limited internet access in 2006 and just seeing this picture online. Every single character in this image was playable in the final game. We're finally here. It's time to break down Armageddon's gameplay. Whilst it lended itself from the mechanics of Deadly Alliance and Deception, it had a lot that was exclusive to it as well. We had 2 punch buttons and 2 kick buttons. Square and triangle were punches. X and circle were kicks. Even back in those days, the competitive community would still refer to these as 1, 2, 3, and 4, just like modern NetherRealm games. For those new to the term, 1 is square, 2 is triangle, 3 is X, and 4 is circle. Combo strings, much like modern games, would also be very similar here. Pressing preset combinations would execute a combo string. A few examples with Sector would be 112, 114, and 33. Special moves were very similar too, although a little bit clunky thanks to the 3D space. They were exactly the same as they always are. Input combinations to get specials to come out. It's as simple as that. Movement played a big part in the 3D games because of sidestepping. By pressing up or down, you can sidestep towards or away from the screen. Sidestep would be a very useful tool for making moves miss and allowing you a full combo punish. Combo breakers have been around for a very long time in Mortal Kombat, and they can be seen in Armageddon too, but with some changes. Breakers would be given to both players at the start of a match. You both had 3 each and could use them whenever you wanted. But here, they were to be used very carefully, as once they were gone permanently. It made you hard to open up early on, but once you lost those breakers, you were dead in this game, and I'll explain why later. To mix up an opponent, it was a simple game of mid or low. Lows hit you stand blocking, and mids hit you crouch blocking. Consider them old style overheads. There really isn't any more to that either. That was the mix-up. The big thing about Armageddon is that it introduced a lot of new features and changes to the old ones. Fighting styles are the first to go over. In the 3D games, characters can swap fighting styles whenever they want, which gives them different move pools. In Deadly Alliance or Deception, characters had 2 non-weapon styles and a weapon style, making it 3 in total. This gave characters massively extended combo strings and combo potential all the same, but in Armageddon and its massive roster, it was shortened down so characters only had 1 non-weapon style and 1 weapon, making it 2 in total for MKA. Before we get stuck into this, I want to introduce you to the community names for the two styles in 3D games. The non-weapon style is referred to as hand-to-hand, or H2H for short, and the weapon style is called just that, weapon. There were two issues that came with the split in fighting styles for MKA. Characters had heavily reduced movesets compared to previous games because, understandably, many characters had combos that would split across their two hand-to-hand styles. One hand-to-hand each meant a lot of those moves were gone. It also introduced an issue where players would play the previous 3D games, favouring one style for a character, and that style being removed and given to somebody else, leaving you with a version of the character that you just didn't like as much in Armageddon. Go and ask Mustard any time about Armageddon Cyrax, and he'll tell you all about how he loved using the Sambo hand-to-hand style for Deadly Alliance, and hated the fact that Cyrax only had ninjutsu in Armageddon. It was a different character entirely. Sonya can be seen sporting the Kenpo fighting style in Deadly Alliance, and as you can see, it was given to Sector in Armageddon, but with a few changes. Finally, on the topic of fighting styles, in Armageddon, some characters heavily favoured one of their styles over the other. The reason I've used Sector in this sequence is because he's a character that relies 90% on the mix-ups, spacing, and range of his pulse blades, the weapon style. His Kenpo hand-to-hand style is way more unsafe, easier to sidestep, and barely faster. It did result in better combos though, because most characters can combo into their weapon stance as a built-in string. Sector's is 1-1 stance change, letting you go from hand-to-hand into weapon seamlessly and damaging them along the way. This meant that you'd spend most of Sector's matches in pulse blades, and then when you finally launched them, swapping quickly into hand-to-hand to get his combo extensions. Shinnok is another example. Far better in Amulet Staff in almost every way thanks to his unbreakable damage and increased range. You could parry the opponent in Armageddon. Pressing back and block would cause you to stick your arms forward. If the opponent hits you in that state, they'd be fully stunned and allow you a full combo. Parries were less risky at the start of a game thanks to breakers, but once they were gone, they were very risky indeed. High risk, high reward comes to mind here. When knocked down, you could stay on the floor for a while, and in this state, you could roll, kick, or launching punch, adding another layer to the knockdown game so the opponent can't be too aggressive. You could actually force yourself into a grounded state whenever you wanted, but this was only in the Wii version, as it was a new mechanic to that specific version of the game. Death traps were introduced in Deception, but carried over into Armageddon as well. On specific points of some stages, you could see a yellow line, which indicated that certain attacks could knock opponents from one part of the stage to the other. But if that line is red, knocking them through it will result in an instant kill, regardless of HP or situation. As you might expect, it made the game really fun casually, but in competitive settings, these were disabled in the options menu. Anyone that's played these games has played Falling Cliffs at least once with a friend, which surrounds the players in a circle that crumbles smaller and smaller, and it's hilarious, because anybody can beat anybody on a stage that could kill you at any moment. Good times. And here we are, the biggest gameplay inclusion to Armageddon, air combat. Launching the opponent isn't just about getting a free hit on the ground in this game. You could jump into the opponent while they're airborne and actually combo them in the air too. This mechanic felt really strange in a 3D space, and I truly never got my head around it when I was playing this game as a teenager, but once you got the hang of it, it felt pretty fun. There were a set amount of air combo styles that would be split into both hand-to-hand and weapon, and spread amongst the cast. A lot of characters had the same air combos in different ways because of these grouped combo systems. In the air, you had the first half of the combo and the second half. I say half because most characters could keep the opponent suspended and go for a second rep of whatever combo they're doing. Rain will be the example here. His hand-to-hand air combat is pretty simple. During air mode, his 1-1-2 stuns them, allowing him to continue with a second rep. This caps at 1, obviously, so you can't loop it, but it's optimal to always start with your air stun and then finish with whatever buttons that you like most. Usually a 4 will knock them down, but you can combo into that as well. Air combat universally gave every single character damage, because combos in this game could be as simple as a string ending in a launch into air combat and an ender. It was very easy. Air combat introduced a fair few problems though, and I'll get into that very soon. Also, because of the air combat's inclusion, jumping looked and felt very different to how jumping was in the other 3D games. This, I assume, was purely so that you could engage in air combat, being a new mechanic. And now, the MK meta is ready to dive into. What was used at a high level with this game, and what were the strats, the little details, the tier list? I'm going to cover as much as I can with the information I've been able to learn. My knowledge of this game has been months in the making, and thanks to old school players such as THTB and Check, the 3D combo master himself, I have a bunch of it. Let's start with a heavy hitter. Air combos were thoroughly broken and led to infinites. The issue is, they were simple to perform too, and pretty much everyone in the game had them. They were performed by the fact that you could change fighting style mid-air combo. Changing the style during attacks would cancel those attacks and leave the combo at a standstill. Here's the thing. If you stance changed at specific points of these air combos, you could mash your 4 button, for most characters, and fall much faster than they do. With the right timing, you can instantly jump again and resume the air juggle from the start. Repeat this process and you can infinite this as long as you can. The combo scales, but that doesn't matter. Without a breaker, this would either be an endless loop or carry the opponent to a death trap and finish the job. Communities would either ban these infinites outright or allow one single rep of it for combo purposes, as the cancel itself does result in some execution heavy and highly swaggy combos that some characters benefited from, arguably needed. Step blocking was a faster way to sidestep in the neutral. While sidestepping, tap your block button and instantly step again. Once you get the rhythm down, you'll find that the up and down sidesteps are much faster when you step block, which benefit greatly against keep-away characters. Parry cancelling was an extremely high-level strat in combos and general gameplay. By performing a parry, you step forward a little bit, but the parry itself can be cancelled out of before the parry becomes active, while retaining some of its forward momentum. By performing a parry and then inputting something else at the right time, you'll move forward just a little bit and then attack with whatever you've pressed. Parry cancelling results in some ridiculous combos, not originally possible without moving forward first. Check has tons of these combos that rely on parry cancel, and I still don't know how he does them. Truly an animal. Parry cancel also worked to give attacks extra range. Notice Cyrax's Weapon 4. Advances by itself and it has great range. Parry cancel this to give it even more range and catch somebody off guard. Grabs were unblockable, and this game had no way to tech them. This set up for many situations where attacks on hit were so plus on hit that a throw was completely guaranteed, often giving characters more combo damage through guaranteed resets than traditional combos by themselves. Look at Jax for this as an example. This string guarantees a grab. His grab guarantees a ground pound. With no breaker, this really hurts. These guaranteed grabs would become staple to some characters' game plan, playing around the threat of a free grab pretty much all the time. Speaking of ground pounds, unblockable ground pounds were also immensely dangerous because they were too easy to guarantee and were unbreakable. Possibly the most dangerous use for these is of a breaker that the defender performs in the air. If the defender is airborne, breaks, and they have a ground pound, they can guarantee the ground pound before you stand up, putting you in situations where they want to get hit because of your low HP. It's a free win for them. If you launch them, it's very busted, but that's just how it was back then. Shinnok, Jax, Jarek, Scorpion, the list goes on really. Unblockables were fantastic. Combos would end against the wall and push you back if you're too close. Similar to UMK3 actually, but in this game, you could still reach in with a fast attack and get a final hit to close the combo out. Again, just like UMK3, screen awareness was needed, but you could do some cool combos from this. You could also break the combo this way thanks to air combat, but that's a different story entirely. Movement-based teleports were highly effective because it forced the opponent to turn around, which took a really long time in this game. If that teleport recovered fast, you could teleport and still pretty much be the aggressor. It's not like now where you can punish it on reaction. In MKA, you took a long time to turn around, making Meat or Smoke or even Rain, who had one of the best teleports in the game, very dangerous. Most attacks in this game are incredibly unsafe or easy to parry, and I'm talking loads of moves. Frame data for 3D games just wasn't as refined or paid attention to compared to 2019. This meant that when playing characters, it was very common to find one really strong move, string, special, whatever, and base an entire game plan around that one string. Because move lists were kinda small compared to the other 3D MKs, these simple game plans were more apparent. Lee May, weapon stance only and fish for guaranteed grabs all the time because she had so many. Sub-Zero's Ice Clone combined with the fact that 3 and 3-2 in hand-to-hand both guarantee a grab on hit. Sub-Zero also had an Impale glitch by inputting a specific command after jumping. Their health drained the whole game, Deadly Alliance style, and were unable to change stance. Cabal's 1-1 up 3 is amazing on block and launches, combined with his Nomad Dash, which is one of the fastest punishers in the entire game. Then you have characters like Fujin, who rely on mostly unbreakable damage. All of his wind specials are unbreakable and can be comboed into each other, making his game plan chunking you down with guaranteed damage. It's all very character specific, but on the subject of characters, here's my next section. Now look, this game had over 60 characters, so there's a 0% chance I can cover them all, and I do apologise for that. But that said, here are some key notes about where some characters sat in the tier list, and if not tier discussion, just what made them tick. Before I start, note that super bosses, that's Moloch, Blaze, and Onaga without fighting styles, were all banned due to their different hit reactions, safety, inability to be thrown, and damage. For reference, Moloch had an infinite that was effortlessly easy to perform. This was one of the only things to be patched out in the Wii version that released later. Scorpion, best character in the game because he pretty much had everything. Insanely high combo damage thanks to high damage strings and guaranteed unblockable hellfire, guaranteed grab situations, ridiculous tracking on 2-3, which was safe. Basically, take everything that made a character in this game, he had it. Serena, also a top 3 character, her daggers were without question the best projectiles in the game. Some characters couldn't get near her because of it. They also had served as combo extenders after a launch. She had this weird thing where if a dagger hit you and she grabbed at the right time anywhere on screen, it would combo. What even is that? Her forward 1 overhead is one of the fastest attacks in the game too. Her air cancels were some of the easiest to perform. Dramin changed a lot from Deadly Alliance. He was relatively safe, had a launching throw, launching ground pound, and his 1-1 stance change was one of the best whiff punishers in the entire game. A very simple but highly effective character. Dairu, although not the 3 frames it was back in Deception, he still had the best launching unblockable in the game thanks to Tombstone drop. His air cancels were pretty easy, and his normals/strings were all in all very safe. He was a highly defensive character. Frost, worst character in the entire game. Everything she did was unsafe on block. She had some cool God's sake. She had some cool utility options because of Ice Puddle, a launching teleport, and the easy air cancel set, but far too unsafe in a game like this. Kai shared the spot for bottom tier as well, unfortunately. Not the most unsafe character in the world, but lacked true mids and suffered from some of the lowest damage. There just wasn't anything special about him. Sector. Couldn't do this video without talking about him. He had insane combo damage with parry cancelling, and even without the parry cancel, he hit for 50% because of 1-1 change stance while he's in hand-to-hand, but was heavily reliant on just his pulse blades. Not that it was a bad thing, pulse blades were very good for mix-ups and range, straight missile was great, and a launching teleport always helps. Cyrax, not very good at all unfortunately. 1-1 guaranteed a throw, but that only did so much for him because his throw side-switched. Without his Sambo fighting style from Deadly Alliance, he was just a shadow of his former self. Pretty much just 1-1 and whiff punishment. He didn't have the net in 3D games either, and his bombs were far too easy to dodge. Smoke, one of the game's only true grapplers. The only character without a weapon. Instead, he had Judo as a stance that featured one-button unblockable command grabs. His 4-4 would also tick into grab, making him kinda hard to deal with when you combine the fact that his regular throw left you stuck in place. Not shy on combo damage either, his down 1 in hand-to-hand was unbreakable for some reason. Also, 2 teleports. Finally, Meat. This character was a huge meme, but so good. High combo damage, guaranteed throws, a one-button command grab that did 20% damage, a teleport for some reason, fast slide, high damaging weapon stance, easy air loops, and the best taunt in the game! The best thing about Meat? His command grab sent you far away on hit. However, in the corner, this pushback didn't exist. Due to what I assume was a developer oversight, this means that Meat could dash in and meaty with it, and it would hit once more, giving him a corner infinite if you didn't have Breaker. Now we've established the competitive stuff a little bit, I want to mention some of the really weird stuff. Now, this game had massive combos. Go and watch any of Czech's Armageddon combo videos and you'll see some insane stuff. But a lot of these combos are not what they seem on face value. There are so many different factors to one combo at a top level, which is why that most players kept things simple outside of combo videos. Some examples of settings to check would be Hurtbox specific. Many combos would be exclusive to the character that's being comboed at the time. Sometimes not only the character, but the costume being worn too. That is specific right there. Which side that's being faced was also a factor. Sometimes you'd need to make sure that your character was back facing the camera at all times for some combos to work. Other times you'd need to make sure that your opponent and yourself were facing opposite directions to the camera for a combo to work too. During matches, you'd have to tactically keep an eye on which side of the screen your character was facing. Player 2 advantage was a thing, believe it or not. You see, Player 1 controlled the camera, which gave Player 2 a couple of extra frames to do things when it comes to inputs or recovery. I can demonstrate this with Cyrax. If Cyrax is against Shiva, his 1-1 loops a large amount after juggle. It will loop less if he's Player 1. If he's Player 2, those extra frames allow for more reps of the exact same juggle. This only works if Cyrax is facing the right direction, and only works against Shiva for maximum reps. This one combo actually demonstrates a fair amount of those funky little details. Sector's weapon back 4 actually works the same way. It's heavily dependent on which direction he's facing, and believe it or not, so did the resolution. Not only did controller ports, costumes, and characters make a big difference to the max damage combos, screen resolution and the TV you're using do as well. Some combos in Armageddon weren't even possible if you were playing on widescreen. 4x3 was the preferred screen to play on, and an old CRT TV gave you the best performance. Something to do with the distance in between characters would change significantly enough on widescreen that if you wanted one of those crazy extended Czech tier combos, it would become near impossible. There's a reason that most of these combos from the videos are done in this ancient resolution and quality. It's the only way a lot of them can work properly. In fact, if you wanted to get the optimal experience with Armageddon in general, 4x3 was the only way to go. In the old days, community was online and pretty much online only. There's a really good video you can watch from Rio, actually, who's a lot more old school than some people give him credit for, where he talks about how the idea of traveling to go to an offline tournament like an EVO or something was pretty far-fetched. Why spend money to travel when we could just play online instead? That wouldn't be such a crazy opinion to have if it wasn't for one thing: Game Spy servers. Deception changed the game by letting players compete online against each other from their own homes. This carried over into Armageddon, and it really was revolutionary for the MK series, but back then, internet connections weren't so good universally, and the GameSpy servers actually changed the game mechanically. Attacks would register different. The on-hit animations wouldn't really sync up with the animations that you see like offline, resulting in players having to play the game entirely differently. Frame data would change online as well. Some attacks become safe on block if you play online, but they're unsafe offline. Serena was particularly broken in the online setting because her daggers were impossible to deal with, and she became far less unsafe on block. Nightmare fuel, really. You guys recognize the rooms, by the way? To this day, Mortal Kombat features this lobby system, but a lot more up to date. It's just crazy to think that this lobby system is still in place over 10 years later. Clans and clan battles were the lifeblood of competition. It wasn't about online tournaments as such, as it was different clans trying to prove that they were the best. Clans would schedule clan battles on forums like Test Your Might, and every member would play everybody. These would be kept track of on the forums, and much like the first to 10 culture that existed in general, reported scores and video footage was always encouraged. It was a different breed of player back then, extremely first to 10 heavy. Online was the version that was taken seriously because offline didn't exist. It was only with NEC in 2010 that offline players such as Czech, THTB, Rio, Crazy, Aldergod, Dancock, and Ryu would gather to play some offline games, of which Czech has a ton of them on his channel. When it comes to rules, the rules were simple. Boss characters banned, and most players heavily favoured the bonus stages that you could unlock in the Conquest mode, as they featured no death traps and no differing geometry. Some stages were simply bigger or smaller than each other, but they were all extremely simple, much more of a battleground. Additionally, some players liked disabling blood because some say it made the performance better online and it just got you into the next match faster. At the end of the day, it was passionate Mortal Kombat fans that were hardcore enough about playing human opponents that they'd go through all the hassle of setting up PS2 online, which wasn't easy, by the way, diving into forums, joining clans, recording matches. It's an effort back in 2006 that has to be respected, and a lot of competitive Mortal Kombat was around before even MK9 hit the scene in 2011. We simply referred to MK9 as the birth of the new scene. It was much more global in 2011. But in North America, the MK community was alive and kicking, and it was in such a huge part thanks to the classic Mortal Kombat community that would play Mortal Kombat 2 and UMK3, and the 3D community still playing Deception or Armageddon, depending on which one they preferred. I take my hat off to all of you guys, because we wouldn't have had those foundations built without you. Whilst there's always more tech out there, and to prevent this video being 3 hours long, this was the basic introduction to what made Mortal Kombat Armageddon such a cult classic to the MK scene around the world. It was definitely broken, make no mistake, but community rules to try and shift the brokenness into something that shaped competitive, like the reps of air loops, removal of death traps, and super bosses banned, it all shapes into a unique Mortal Kombat experience. Dust off your PS2, Xbox, or Wii, jump into your favourite characters and press a few buttons. You'll find yourself having a great time if you have someone to play it with. Thank you all for sticking around, and once again, apologies for the gap between MK metas. They're without question the biggest videos that I make, and Armageddon, although a childhood favourite of mine, has taken months to learn and understand. Every game in this series must be done its proper justice for me to be satisfied with the information that I put out, and it would not have been possible if it wasn't for the constant help from legendary 3D MK community members, Czech and THTB. Thank you both so much for the help, and I'm sure that you all agree it's gone a long way. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.
It has come to this final battle. Armageddon has begun.